And good evening. Welcome to another edition of Coach's Corner here on the Highliner Activity Network, live from the Highliner Activity Center here in Valley City. I'm your host, Paul McDonald, and, of course, Brian Creedwell working as our IT, our technical director, and cameraman here this evening. A great show coming up for you tonight, so stick around. We are going to be talking about a lot of different things. Coming up later in the show, we're going to be talking a little bit about speech. The speech team is getting very close to their state tournament. And we mentioned this last week, the three-class system, the possibility, just a proposal that's out there for a three-class system. We'll be talking with Superintendent Josh Johnson about that. We're going to kick things off with the Express Wrestling, joined by Matt March. Matt, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Paul?
Fantastic. How can you not be? It's 50 degrees outside.
It's wonderful.
I love the sound of slushy water as your car is driving through the melting snow. Of course, car washes right now are loving this time of year. That is for sure. Well, we are talking Express Wrestling, and, of course, wrestling is almost becoming a year-round situation, year-round commitment. But let's get caught up on, before we talk about this weekend, how things have been going with the Express Wrestling here as of late.
Things have been going great. This year we have a record number of kids in Express. We did a count of kids here just on Monday night. We had 83 kids registered for Express Wrestling. That's between our two different levels, our inexperienced kids or our new kids, and our kids that have been in it for a few years. We've had tournaments every weekend since just after New Year's. We've been busy every week. Sometimes there's tournaments on Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays. So we've been putting miles on the vehicles, getting busy, spending money on concession stands, stuff like that.
K through 6?
K through 6.
Okay.
Yep. And now that the high school season is done, a lot of tournaments are opening up to 7th and 8th graders too.
Okay. I know when you talked about like beginners, what kinds of things do you work with the kindergartners and kids just out for wrestling?
So with the newer kids, the basis is to have fun. Mm-hmm. We're trying to teach them, the basics of wrestling, have fun, not give up. How to get through the emotions of a match too, because that can be a big thing for a lot of newer wrestlers. The wrestling in front of a lot of people, the noise, breaking through that comfort stage of doing something new and different. It's a tough sport, right, but it's a very rewarding sport.
And if you put the work in, and if you lose, it's a little, you get kind of down. But it's like you got to try to stay even if you can, as best as you can.
Kids work hard, and they don't like to lose. And I like seeing that, but I like seeing, especially the younger kids, that they don't lose their determination or that they don't give up.
Yeah.
That's one of my biggest things is I don't want kids to give up. That translates to life,
Yeah.
I tell all the parents in our parents' meetings, there is no sport to me that directly correlates to life like wrestling.
Yeah.
The lessons you learn, the things that get taught to you, there's nothing to me that directly correlates like wrestling.
Well, you talk to some of the older kids, the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders that have maybe gone to Highliner matches and say, Coy Griebel wasn't this good all the time. He was counting the ceiling tiles a few times. Colton Griebel, the Ethan Milley, these kids that are doing so phenomenally at the high school level, they weren't always this good.
Yep, and we have those boys coming in and helping us now, and the kids are loving that.
Yep.
And Coy will give them that talk every once in a while, like, hey, I started out on the bottom.
Yep.
I think it was a year or two before he actually won his first match.
Well, now you said here not too long ago there was an all-girls tournament up in East Grand Forks.
Yep.
And sounds like the Highlanders did pretty well.
Yep. March 6th, I believe it was, 5th or 6th. Mm-hmm. It's first weekend in March. East Grand Forks had a all-girls tournament. Well, they had a wrestling tournament with an all-girls division.
Okay.
The girls could elect to wrestle in both divisions, and some of them did. We had one girl elect to wrestle in both divisions, and she did very well. We had 8 girls compete up there, and they all wrestled very well. I was very proud of them. I was the only coach up there that weekend. I think we had 14 wrestlers up there total. I think I probably shed 4 or 5 pounds just running from mat to mat, but it was fun. I was excited. We had some kids wrestle their very first matches. Mm-hmm. We had a couple of girls come away with some championships. They had some really cool bobblehead pewter trophies up there. It was pretty neat.
Well, that's and something with girls wrestling for people that haven't been following it. This year was the first sanctioned girls state tournament from the North Dakota High School Activity Association, intermixed with the boys state tournament. Of course, I would say Maddie Christensen was a runner-up.
Yep, she was
this year at 126.
Yep,
and they were express wrestlers. Her and Deegan and Jada, who were the high school age, they were express wrestlers at one time.
They were all in express. Yep.
And now they're right up there, some of the cream of the crop as far as state wrestling is concerned. And is that something, too, Matt, you're going to see grow, is the number of girls? So you said we had 14 that went up there in K through 6.
Yep.
So is that something where you're going to say, hey, we're going to be able to field our own a whole team, a full team?
That's my hope. That's my dream. Field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. I would say, and it's my hope, in the next 4 or 5 years, we are going to have a solid girls team. Mm-hmm. You can see it in the bigger cities, Bismarck, Fargo, Grand Forks, Minot. A lot of Class B. Lisbon had, I think, 12 girls on their team this year.
Okay.
It was amazing. Hettinger has a lot of girls on their wrestling team. It's the fastest growing girls sport in the United States.
All right. And college-wise, we have Emma Mielke, a Highliner that's wrestling for University of Jamestown.
And they just had the NAIA National Women's Tournament in Jamestown last weekend.
Yep. And so it is definitely an up-and-coming sport, and it's great to see that the Highlanders are going to be around on the ground floor when this really takes off. And because we've had girls that have gone to the state tournament before it was sanctioned.
Yep.
And now this year we had our first sanction and had a great turnout. Well, now coming up this weekend, you guys are going to be hosting, Express going to be hosting a tournament this weekend.
Yep. Express is going to be hosting its first youth tournament in about 10 years, individual tournament. We've hosted a few multi-duels, dual tournaments over the last 10 years, but it's been about 10 years since that we've had a individual tournament. And it is one of only 2 tournaments on the eastern side of the state this weekend. So I'm expecting the hack is going to be packed and busy, and the line for the concessions is going to be long, and there's going to be a lot of cars around here.
And wrestling will probably get started around noon?
Yep. We have weigh-ins 9 to 11, and then we start bracketing, and then wrestling's going to start.
Okay.
Try to start around noon. It's every tournament I go to, it's never right at noon.
That's a floating time.
Yep. We got to get the national anthem done. We got to get bracketing done. Got to get kids to where they need to be.
Yep. Get the the skin checks, the weigh-ins,
yep.
all that.
Things got to be clicking. So.
All right. Well, and again, that'll be coming up here on Saturday. And if you want to come out and watch it, come out and follow the Express Wrestlers. We'll also have a video stream live here on the Highlander Activity Network. And again, wrestling starts at noon. And we'll probably start coverage a little before that, maybe 11:30 we'll start coverage. You can tune in and watch as they're warming up and what's going on here at the Hack. And then again, wrestling starts at noon. You and Ryan Conklin, your left and right hand man that helps with Express Wrestling, and I'm sure there's many dads that have, but Ryan comes to mind. Are you guys just extremely pleased where Express Wrestling is right now and what it looks to be like in the future?
Oh yeah, it's we never thought this year that it would take off like it has, especially after COVID last year. A couple years ago, when me and Ryan became the co-head coaches, I think we had 35 kids total between both levels.
Okay.
It was easy for us two to handle. This year we've had to ask for a lot more help, from other parents. I've do the emailing, and I've asked parents, if you have a wrestling background, please consider helping us out. And we have had a lot of people step forward and help out this year.
Well, and it takes a village.
It does. Yep. And the success breeds success.
Yep.
With the success of our high school wrestling program, we're the feeder. We got to keep that train rolling.
Keep that train, no pun intended.
Yeah,
keep the express going.
That was punny.
Pun, that was punny, so pun was intended on that one. Another topic I was going to talk about, we have 3 wrestlers that are going to be wrestling, representing the state of North Dakota.
Yep. So the state of North Dakota, through North Dakota USA Wrestling, they put together a Heartland dual team. It takes place in April down in Council Bluffs, Iowa. We have had a few kids on that team before. This year, it's Deegan Kirschman and Gabby Hanig. They are going to be on the women's team, the elementary women's team. And I take that back. It's the middle school women's team. So that'd be 6th grade through 8th grade. And Chase Coughlin, I believe this is his second time making the Heartland dual team.
Okay.
And he will be part of the elementary team.
Okay. And Council Bluffs, Iowa, when is it going to be?
I'm not sure the exact date, but I know it's in April.
It is in April.
Yep.
So you've got several weekends to choose from. Yep. Probably not Easter weekend, but a couple before and a couple after for that. And Wrestler of the Week. Who's our Wrestler of the Week for Express?
This last week it was Simon Trapp.
Okay.
Yep. He's been working very hard. He's been going to tournaments every weekend. He's a 5th grader. I believe this is his 2nd year of wrestling. He started out, pretty green last year, and the improvement that he's made, he went to wrestling camps all summer long. He wrestled with a club in Fargo on Sunday nights, and I believe he is still doing that, to better himself.
Yep.
He wrestles with the Grebo boys. A couple of our Express wrestlers will wrestle with the Grebo boys every once in a while.
Sure.
It's really cool to see that big step that he took.
And I'm sure he's learning quite a bit of wrestling them.
The week before that was my daughter, Catherine.
Okay.
Yep. She's been having a heck of a year, too. She's been wrestling boys and girls divisions.
Okay.
That tournament in East Grand Forks, she did take first place.
Yep.
It was pretty cool for her. That was the first tournament this year that she wrestled in when it was just all girls.
Okay.
She has placed in 2 boys tournaments this year and where she took first. It was kind of neat for her. That where she could hang with the boys.
Yeah,
she likes that.
And and not only as a coach, but as a dad, and you see the growth of girls wrestling in North Dakota. And as a dad, you're saying I like that for Catherine. And yeah, she can compete with the boys. Obviously, she can. She's winning championships, but still, you'd like to see that.
Yep.
That she's going to be able to compete with some young ladies as well.
Yep. And it's comical to watch her too. I get a lot of comments from other coaches. One coach from Castlin called her a little buzzsaw one weekend, and and it's cool the community that the girls wrestling has built too. All the moms and the dads, the girls will wrestle on the mat, and as soon as they walk off, they're talking about, you want to come over to the stands and color with me or play Barbies or whatever they got in their backpack for the day.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, again, let's remind folks about this Saturday. What's the time that they can come in and when things kind of get started?
The doors are going to open about 8:30, where nothing's really going to be happening except for registration for all the wrestlers from other teams coming in. Weigh-in is from 9 to 11, and we're going to try to kick off wrestling right around noon. We got bracketing to do between 11 and noon. That's when the kids are out warming up. Hopefully not out there playing tag or whatever they do in between, roughhousing, whatever.
Right.
Hopefully they're just hanging out, stretching, drilling like they're supposed to.
Doing what they're supposed to. Yeah. And we'll have the camera on, so we'll have proof if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then hopefully we'll get that wrestling going about noon.
Yep.
Okay. And do we have an idea how many teams and what you got?
The last couple of days, I've gotten a lot of phone calls from coaches, and I think this place is going to be busy.
Nice.
So
all right.
I ordered just over 440 awards. I hope I have enough.
So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see coming up on Saturday. Again, wrestling will get started at noon, and that'll be here at the Hack. And again, we'll have it here on the Highlander Activity Network, live coverage of the Express Wrestling Tournament here from the Hack. Well, Matt, again, congratulations to you and Ryan and the Express Wrestling on the past success and continued success. I'm sure we'll chat again before we wrap things up here in the wrestling season, see where things are at.
Yep, we got our state tournament next weekend, so
we'll definitely
we're gearing up for that.
Well, after that state tournament, we'll have to come back and talk about some state champs.
Sounds good.
Maybe drag a couple with you.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
All right, Coach. I'll call you Coach. Yep. Matt, thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thanks.
Matt March from Express Wrestling here on Coach's Corner. We'll be back with more on the Highlander Activity Network. And welcome back to the Highlander Activity Center and the Highlander Activity Network in tonight's edition of Coach's Corner. We are joined now by Valley City Public School Superintendent Josh Johnson. Josh, how you doing?
Paul, I'm doing awesome. Sun's shining today. Temperature's finally warming up a little bit. Snow's melting. we can stop worrying a little bit about school cancellations. Hopefully I didn't jinx something.
Yeah, I was going to say, nicely done if it happens.
Right. I'll tell you, though, sitting by the side here and listening to Coach Marsh talk about express wrestling is quite impressive. So big shout out to Coach Coughlin, Coach Marsh, and everybody who's associated with express wrestling. 83 wrestlers. I have a daughter who's participating in that program, actually went up to East Grand Forks and competed in the tournament up there. Unbelievable. And when you think in terms of feeder programs, look it up in the dictionary. It says express wrestling. Yep. 83 kids funneling into our high school wrestling team. And again, they do an outstanding job. Coach Hansen, Coach Larson, but it starts here at the elementary level and getting those kids excited. So fantastic, and we want to see that type of excitement and spirit, carry over into the other activities as well.
And I think you go 1 through 14 on our starting lineup for the Highliner wrestlers, and probably every one of them was an express wrestler at one time.
Yeah, absolutely. And 2 other shout-outs, Paul. I have our play site, kind of inaugural year here, and the number of events that you guys have covered, Paul. Thanks for jumping into this. And, it's kind of been learning as we go and providing people in Valley City or outside of this area that opportunity to be able to follow their Highliners. So Brian Krewald and Jaden Johnson and Tegan Zahn, Derek Bear, everybody for jumping in. Again, shout out to our sponsors, Booster Club, Essentia Health, and Dickey Rural Network for helping us to kick this off, and obviously bigger, brighter, greater things to come. So thank you very much.
And, of course, on the broadcast side, we've had Amelia Meester and Steph Holfarth, and my guest later on in the show, Maddie Claibo. We'll be talking speech, and she's done some play-by-play in some basketball games. And talk about getting out of your comfort zone. These young ladies don't know these sports, but they get right in there and do it.
And kind of the philosophy of, if somebody doesn't know, again, back to this, is really student-driven.
Yeah.
So that opportunity for students to be involved with this, both from the technical side of things and the camera work, to sitting here in the chair and put the microphone on and listening to Tegan Zahn call a ball game, is just absolutely fantastic. And to see more of that now as we go forward in upcoming years would be really something that would help grow the program and their experiences for sure.
The Kilohertz broadcast team, as we called them, when if I had to do PA, we had the Kilohertz broadcast team. That was the backup, and that was Tegan Zahn, of course, Brian Krewald and Jordan Heck. And think about Kilohertz, the abbreviation for Kilohertz: Big K for Krewald, Big H for Heck, and little Z for Zahn. So.
Hey, Paul, not to go completely off script, but one more big announcement from Valley City Public Schools that's coming out this afternoon. Our activities director, Mike Schultz, who's been with us in the school district for the last 5 years, has announced his resignation from the school district. Mike is taking an activities director position down in Sturgis, South Dakota, which is a few footsteps from where his retirement home is going to be. And I want to give a shout out to Mike and everything that he's done, helped us in our school district over the last 5 years. The amount of hours and dedication and what he's put into this position is, countless. And so we congratulate him on that next step and just thank him for all the work that he's done for our school district during that time. So the school board will be meeting tomorrow morning, Thursday, and proving that resignation, and from there, then we look forward and trying to find somebody to fill those shoes, and somebody that's going to come in and be able to grow our programs and provide those activities, those important activities for our students here in Valley City Public Schools.
The countless conversations we had, rearranging schedules, finding officials when there's a snow. I always told them, I'm glad I'm not in your shoes.
No, in the school world, it's well known that activities director position is not the one necessarily that's coveted by a lot of people, and so it's because of the hours that go into that, and sometimes the challenges relates relative to, keeping everybody happy, and we know it's a challenging world out there relative to the activities, and so I think Mike has represented our school district well. He's a man of strong character and integrity and hard work.
And very few words.
Yeah, he is. That's correct.
He lets the activities do the bulk of the talking for him, and so we wish Mike good luck, and I'm sure I'll see him a few times here before he departs back for Sturgis. So we will miss Mike. He got here about the same time I did, because this is my 5th school year. I've been to Valley City, so we've been working it together, and so he will be sorely missed. Let's talk about basketball. Is kind of a topic that we came off the state Class A tournament, and what a phenomenal tournament. Minot wins both the boys and girls state championship, and of course a couple weeks ago the state Class B girls, state Class B boys get started tomorrow. And this has been a topic, and I can honestly say, Josh, it's not a new topic. This 3-class system that people talk about. This has been going on for a lot of years, and West Fargo Cheyenne coach has kind of thrown a proposal out there. First off, in your mind, you've had a chance to see the proposal. I studied a little bit of it today. I like the way it's set up, just for the fairness of the teams, travel, and it's based on enrollment, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and you're right, Paul. So, let's take a step back here a second. And again, this is nothing new that's coming to us in this conversation. And I think Director Matt Fetch within North Dakota High School Activity Association will tell you that these conversations have been had all the way back maybe to the 70s or 80s. And for those people that have been around Valley City for a while, they remember the old North Star League. And, that was somewhat of a kind of a deviated 3-class system where they'd play their independent schedule during the league round and then have the chance to be able to then play their way into the Class A tournament. And so, now is fast forward 2010, there was a plan that was brought forward that was voted down. And so since about 2015, Tom Kirchhoffner from West Fargo, boys basketball coach, has been working developing this plan, and over the last 6-7 years, just sharing bits and pieces of that, collecting feedback from different individuals, and I think that hard work has really brought us to the point we're at now, where that plan has been put out there on social media. It's been shared out in the school world across North Dakota. And we've stepped up as a school district and are assisting Tom in trying to share that information out there across the state, as well as collect feedback. And so it was in January we conducted a survey of school administrators, asking them whether or not this would be something that they would be interested in exploring. And the results from that, 85% of respondents representing each school district said that they would be willing to discuss a 3-class plan, which I think in itself spoke to some of the challenges that we're currently experiencing in North Dakota right now as it relates to basketball, whether you're talking about girls or boys basketball, A or B. So you look at the state B girls, and when you get to a state tournament, you're expecting you're going to have some great games. Well, unfortunately, if you had a chance to look at the state B girls, all 4 of the quarterfinal games were not close. And that's kind of, and that's why the timing of this is good. And you look at this now, you talk about the North Star, the class where we'd have Valley City, all 10 teams that made up the North Star would be in that would be considered a middle class. That there would be a AA, and one thing I know that in this proposal you have 3 schools: Bismarck, St. Mary's, Fargo, Shanley, and West Fargo Horse, who's the new school, the new kid on the block. Their enrollment would be in Class A. There would be AA, A, and B, and their enrollment would be A, but it looks like they would opt up, which would make numbers even. Do you feel just with this whole set, the way it's set, and the way it's being proposed, that really it would be a win-win, wouldn't it, for some of these schools, just to be able to go out and compete? And this is just basketball we're talking, just so people know. We're just talking about basketball, no other sports. And go out there and be able to compete night in and night out against teams of similar size. Let me give a disclaimer first of all.
Sure.
Based on our enrollment, which looks at that 9 through 12, in 2 years, with this next junior class graduating after next year, our enrollment is going to be right at that 325 number. And so the information we've put out there is, hey, in 2 years, Valley City is potentially going to be in that same boat as a Kindred or a Castleton, a Grafton, a Beulah, where our enrollment is going to be at the top of the Class B level. And again, that, I don't want to put, information out there, promises or anything else relative to that. We may have more kids come in and may never qualify for that B level. But in the event that we would, for us, I don't think it's right for Valley City to be playing against Barnes County North, Maple Valley, Sargent County School, and in the same way that it doesn't match for Valley City to play Cheyenne, Davies, Minot High, and it's the enrollment gaps right now in the two-class system that I think are really creating the greatest challenges. And what that's leading to, in my opinion, Paul, and this is some of the feedback we got from the survey, is the competitive imbalance. We went through and up until I think it was about middle of January, started keeping track of the number of 40-point game differentials. And I think at that point it was 32 in Class A boys and girls basketball. And since then, that number obviously has increased. You referenced the Class B girls state tournament, and you had a game, I think the differential was 40 plus in one of the quarterfinal games. Yep. And so, those things are just, in the past were absolutely unheard of. And so in addition to that, when you have that level of imbalance that's occurring in basketball, then you're going to start seeing decrease of student participation. We've seen it right here in Valley City with our girls team, and this year we had 12 kids that went out for girls basketball. But I tell you what, and for those that don't know, we're not alone relative to that. That's Williston this year played a JV schedule because they couldn't field a team. Again, that's a school district with over 5,000 kids. And so Jamestown had some troubles with their girls basketball. Minot, the state champs, have 2 8th graders playing on their team and had troubles with their numbers as well. And so, competitive imbalance, student participation, and that enrollment difference is really, again, I think at the root of what we're referencing talking about. So in this plan that's been proposed, there's going to be some modifications to that and some flexibility within that, but right now, I think the key thing to look at is that middle class. Where do those numbers break, and who should be in the middle class and who should be in the low? And so in Class B, what you have is some schools that have been co-oping, and I think one of the reasons for that is to be competitive with the Kindreds and the Castletons of the world. Let's use Sargent County as an example. Right. You have Milner, Sargent Central, and North Sargent that have come together to form Sargent County, and so individually each of those may be able to field their own teams, but no way would they be able to compete against a Kindred and a Castleton. So they come together and they form this co-op, and as a result then that potentially pushes them up into that middle class. Right. And so when we start having those conversations with the school districts regarding a 3-class plan, that really is going to be at the center of this, is what happens to those co-ops and where do those numbers put these schools. I think, some evidence relative to what you're talking about, Paul, as well, is look at the teams in both the Class B girls state tournament as well as the Class B boys state tournament. And, I'd tell you that, again, I'm not discounting the work that goes into being a competitive athlete or a competitive team, but you see the same teams that are going back year after year and the number of appearances that they've had in the last 5, 10, 15 years. Right. And, when in the past you maybe had a beach that was showing up more frequently or a Larimore, and that's just not happening with the regularity that it was previously.
Yeah. And you talk about the competitive aspect of it. Now, Wahpeton, the team that knocked the Highlanders out of the EDC, and in one of the best high school games I've had a chance to watch when they played down there. They went to the state tournament first time in a while. Coach Watson's girls team, they lose by 50 points to Bismarck Century in the first round, and then by 41 or whatever in the second round. And they're a good basketball team. Yeah. But they would be part of this middle class if you go by the enrollment. But still, it's trying to make things fair is the whole bottom line for this, isn't it?
Absolutely it is. Again, it comes back down to the experiences from our students. And if you're getting beat by 40 and 50 points, right. I don't think you can blame anybody in terms of what's the motivation to come out. And so how do we balance that, right? And is a 3-class going to be perfect? Sure. No, absolutely not. I think we can all agree relative to that. But can we agree that it'll be better than what we have right now? Right. And that's the question, and that's the exploration that we're going on right now, Paul. And so the next steps for us is I actually just met with Tom this afternoon and had a conversation regarding the plan and kind of where we're at. And so we have a grassroots effort, focus group with representatives all across the state that are going to come together. And what we're going to ask is, what are our next steps for April, May, and June? Yeah. And how do we disseminate this information and collect that feedback? Because, again, I think at the root of this is really, where school's at and what is it that they want us to be able to address in this, the why. And so, then fast forwarding beyond that, ultimately this is going to come to the North Dakota High School Activities Association. And so we're looking at August, September, October at the possibility of being able to gather the support, 60%, which is what we need across North Dakota from school districts, before we could present that plan to the North Dakota High School Activity Association.
And again, this is a proposal.
Yeah.
And we want people to know this isn't going to happen. It's not a done deal. It's a proposal. It's in the discussion phase, which is the best. That's the biggest thing. When you have issues, you got to talk about it first.
Correct.
You've got to figure out how can we remedy it second, and then you see what kind of backing you have third and fourth and down the line. So and kudos to Tom, because this is a West Fargo Cheyenne coach, and this wasn't he's the one that's putting this together because he sees it as the Cheyenne head coach that there is a discrepancy, and we need to fix that. Yep. And then it's great to see that it's going to be a conversation. We'll be talking about this for a long time, and again, it's not going to happen next year. It may not happen in 2 years. It may not happen at all, but it's being discussed.
Yeah, and I think some frequently asked questions that I receive from different people is, when would this begin?
Yeah.
And so we'd be looking at the earliest of the 23-24 basketball season. That question of, is volleyball included? Is track included? Is wrestling included? And right now the focus is strictly on basketball. Yeah. If you create a plan, there's really a path then for us to be able to explore other activities. Again, if there's interest regarding that. And then the last, one of the last questions I get is, well, it's just about winning championships. It's just about, having state tournament appearances. And no, it's not. It really, again, comes back down to the experiences of our students and the opportunity for them to be able to participate and to enjoy and sharing in that camaraderie that team sports provide. And so competitive imbalance, increasing participation, and really decreasing that enrollment gap is really at the root of what we're asking and trying to address through a 3-class plan.
A lot to talk about. I mean, we can go on for another hour and talk about this. The breakdown in that middle class, what they're talking about with the two conferences and 2 regions in each conference. We could go on and on. But we're just getting started. It's just the tip of the iceberg, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It's going to be a marathon, so to say, over the next 6-9 months, regarding this conversation. And there's going to be some critical decisions we hope that will have to be made in the end of this journey. But, as people are listening in and hopefully hearing a little bit more rumblings regarding the 3-class plan, we hope that they start asking those questions and having the conversations. And when they travel, go see relatives in other towns, whether it's small or large, they can be talking a little bit more regarding that. And even, planning, thinking ahead of what does a 3-class tournament system look like, and what does that consider looking like as far as streaming or television services. And so those are some of the other questions that, need to be asked and discussed and have some resolution regarding those things as well.
Well, Josh, we're just getting started on this topic, and I appreciate you coming in and shedding some light on. You actually answered a few questions I had, and I appreciate you coming in and talking about it. And again, to be continued. Yeah. If this was a TV show, you'd see at the bottom of the screen, to be continued, because there's a lot more to talk about, a lot more things that needs to happen. And as we get down the line, we'll have another show and talk more about it.
Yeah, Paul, just again, highlighting activities and the things that you've been covering now for the last six months or so. There's so many benefits that come from that participation of our students. And again, outside of basketball, we sit here and we talk about 83 little wrestlers. Right. And, you talk about football programs and basketball, and then we talk about the fine arts of the musics and the dramas and the plays and everything. And all that does, is just brings a camaraderie to your school district, a pride, and gives students purposes behind their experiences on top of the academics. And so we really say that it's educationally based activities. And the more that we can get students involved in activities, I believe, the more successful that they'll be learning those lessons and skills and teamwork, and it really sets them up well for their journeys ahead.
Well, I don't think we can finish it any better way than that right there. And Josh, again, I appreciate the time and stopping by and chatting, and hopefully we'll do it again.
Thank you very much, Paul.
You bet. Superintendent Josh Johnson from Valley City Public Schools back with more of our Coach's Corner here on the Highliner Activity Network. Back here on Coach's Corner on the Highliner Activity Network here this evening. And now we're joined by Maddie Claibo from the Valley City Highliners speech team, who we were just talking about, one of the great students that help us out here on the Highliner Activity Network. Maddie, how you doing?
I'm doing good tonight, yeah.
You like the nice weather?
Oh my gosh, it's just lovely. I actually had speech practice this afternoon, and I just sat on the courtyard because it was just so nice. I didn't have to sit in the cold in the school. It's nice.
It's nice to sit in 50-degree weather and practice. And too bad we have to go to school this weekend, but that's another story. On Friday, but the speech team, and this is something I think you and I maybe talked about, or you and Abby talked about when you guys chatted here a while ago, but the speech team for Valley City has been a very, very successful team, and you've been part of it how many years?
This will be my 6th year.
Your 6th year. Yep. You've got a few state championships banners hanging up in the hack here, and it's been a pretty good legacy for this group, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Honestly, coming into a team as a 7th grader that was at the time kind of not that well known, and then be able to watch it grow to like just the monster that it is now has been absolutely incredible. And honestly, my first year being on the speech team was our second at the time consecutive EDC championship, and it was our first state championship in like years and a long time. So I was lucky enough to be a part of the team that was kind of cultivating that successful legacy. Not that it wasn't already before. We were doing well in stats, but like it's been so nice to be a part of a team that just watches itself grow and actually find like kind of the secret sauce and working things out. And honestly, that legacy has been so impressive to see our younger kids come into. Like our 7th and 8th graders this year are so incredible. There's students like Jack Sowerby, Elijah Drummond, like all these little ones that honestly work so hard and come into these programs knowing how successful they are and know that they want to be a part of that, which is the beauty of this activity. It's for everybody. It's with everybody. And it honestly takes a village, and our little kids are stepping up to the plate. That's for sure.
And as a senior, you're feeling a lot of pride, almost like a mom would in their kids, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. I've played a couple motherly characters in my scripts, and honestly, that's not too far off from who I am as a person. I feel a lot of pride, especially in our younger ones, and even in my friends. It's just so nice to be like, to feel that sense of pride, especially as like, this is my last year. I'm able to kind of look back at my career and say, wow, how far have I come? And also be able to look at people my own age or people above me and be able to like, satisfy their career and say like, this is what happened then, and this is how this went, and how you change as a person through your activities is just immeasurable, especially in the world of speech and debate.
And when you get into college and they say, no, back in my day.
Oh yeah, I already am kind of feeling the old, like, like I said earlier, I started on this team when it was like just kind of getting successful, and I was like, oh, back in my day, I remember when, so and so did this, and they're like, who is that? I'm like, oh my gosh.
You don't know?
That was a state champion.
And with these younger kids, really with speech, you need those the 7th and 8th graders, 9th graders to really step up when they if you're going to be successful.
Oh yeah.
And you've seen that.
Oh yeah. I was lucky enough to be a part of it, and then also to kind of pass that legacy on. That kind of feels different than the main team success. A majority of our points is from total entries. So we have a lot of kids that are very successful, that are kind of our elite kids, our champions. But our points come from those littles that are just trying out speech for the first time. They come for those mid-tier students that have been doing this for a while but aren't, their lives aren't speech. They have other, social lives.
Right.
And it's kind of an idea of like, all of our kids matter to our team, and all of our points matter to keep us as successful as we are. And we wouldn't be there without our ability to retain and to recruit. And honestly, those are difficult things to learn when you're 14 and you're like, what is recruiting? How do you get people on a team? But it works for us. So
how has being in speech maybe put you outside your comfort level when you were a seventh grader, and how it has made you a little bit more of an extrovert?
I took that weird like INFJ test, like the personality test, and my statistics were completely 50-50 introvert extrovert. And I don't know if you put any stock into personality tests, but the people like you or maybe some of my teachers who know me would probably think me as like a 90% extrovert. But in my heart, I actually am a very shy person, and a lot of speech has been taking that shyness from me and cultivating it into making me like myself more, which sounds weird, but growing that confidence and being able to stand firm in what you have to say is something that you learn from speech and debate. And it's not something that you can't learn elsewhere, but being a part of a team that really stretches you and makes you know you're going to be talking about this day and this day, and having different outlets for first not only your emotional variance but also like your political ideologies, your ability to write, your ability to like just communicate with other competitors is really truly found in the heart of speech and debate. And that made shy little anxious seventh grade Maddie into what I would say a more extroverted, confident person that I feel like I am today.
Because you get to speak in front of people when you do this, so if you have to give a speech later in life, you can revert back to back in my day. And you know, I'll take an example of myself. When I was 6th, 7th, even 8th grade, and I had to give a speech in front of a class, I shook so bad. It sounded like I was walking on leaves. And I had to hand my paper to my partner so he could hold the paper because I couldn't do it. Now, you know, it's second nature talking in front of a group of people, emceeing events, whatever we do. And I think I see that with you. I didn't see you as a seventh grader, but I've seen you as a sophomore, junior, and senior, and how you have grown in that role. And it's, I would not put you as an introvert. Not even close.
A little bit,
Not even close.
Yeah, my parents might tell you a different story, but, you know, growing up as like, I went to a Catholic school. I went to our biggest class in the whole school was 13 kids, and I was a very shy, like nervous little person. I worried about everything, and I was like, oh, I just don't know if what I'm going to say is going to be correct, or like, what if somebody doesn't like me? And being a part of an activity that literally makes you just talk in front of adults and have to present yourself confidently and like an adult has done more for me than I could ever explain. Like, I was always a teacher's pet, so to speak, but that wasn't a relationship in which I felt like I could actively communicate my feelings, my wants, or my needs with an adult in a confident way. But just having to do that, like having to advocate for yourself and having to be a part of a team that, you know, makes you do what you have to in order to be successful in an activity that requires you to speak to adults really just does wonders for a kid's confidence.
I bet it does. And maybe we'll see her on the political stage someday, running for office and then making that speech. I knew her when she was an introvert.
Vote me.
Vote Maddie. Vote Maddie. And, you know, you've already kind of got your college thing figured out as far as what you'd like to do, and going kind of the same way I did in the communication world. But now let's get back to the team. We've been talking a lot about Maddie, and I know you don't like talking about yourself, but as a team, you got state now coming up here in the month of April. What are you guys doing? Are you kind of preparing for that? I'm assuming you will still have some competition on weekends leading up to that. So what kinds of things are you guys thinking about as far as state is concerned?
It's a great question. I think what we're mainly leaning towards is kind of narrowing down our options field and just kind of seeing what's working and what isn't and how we're supposed to fix. A lot of the beginning of speech is panicking and finding pieces, writing pieces, and working things together for each event. A lot of the middle ground of speech is just throwing everything at the wall and just being like, oh, well, I don't know, maybe I'll try this event this week. And I've done 7 events over the course of this year, which is way more than I've done any other year. And a lot of what we're doing now is honing up those skills and making sure that our events are practiced, they're organized, they're put together, they sound good, and they're, you know, champion quality. Not that we're expecting to roll in and just like, whoa, full sweep, but the idea is to get us as close as possible to be as successful as we can.
Well, if you still wondering about, as far as the speech, what the categories are. Maddie and I think Brooklyn were on Highlander News this past last week. Can you kind of explain a little bit what speech is? Give us a thumbnail of the, you said you've done 7 categories. What 7 have you done?
Oh, gosh. Okay. Let me see.
I'm going to make her think now.
Okay. I've done, my main event has always been dramatic interpretation,
right.
Which is basically a play that's cut down into a more serious nature. I've done serious duo this year with my partner, Abby Redfern, which has just been a blast. It's kind of a serious cutting of a book or a play or anything with 2 people involved. And then I've done serious prose, which is a cutting of a book. That's all my sad events out of the way. Then I've done persuasive speaking. My topic was actually workism, which is kind of difficult to explain, but it's basically a speech where you have, kind of your 3 main points talking about what an issue is, how you fix it, that kind of thing. I've done extemporaneous speaking, which is a short draw event where you get an hour basically to create a political 7-minute speech. I've been doing that one since the 8th grade, and boy, you do get better with time. I've done impromptu speaking, which is basically you get a quote, and then in, anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 minutes, basically, you create a 5 or 6 minute speech about the quote, kind of 3-point structure. That one comes with a lot of practice as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You get 2 more.
Okay. Oh
comedy?
gosh.
Any improv or?
I actually didn't get a lot into the comedy sphere in terms of speech. I did a humorous piece my 7th grade year. I did a humorous duo, but nothing really, kind of stuck with me. I prefer the kind of serious, introspective
Yeah, you
nature.
are a serious individual.
Yeah, that's me. Totally not giggling this entire interview. I have 2 others. Extemporaneous programmed reading, which is you get an hour and you cut down whatever script they give you, and then you perform it, which sounds scary, also comes with practice. And then one more.
We'll have you on another show.
That'll be another show. Yeah, we'll get there.
Talk about that one. Last question, a couple of questions. What do you plan on doing for state? Do you have an idea what you're going to do?
Kind of not really. I'm hoping to take my dramatic interp to state. It's been doing pretty well this season, and honestly, that's kind of like I want to hold it. It's like my child is my DI, so trying to kind of keep it going. But I'm honestly not sure. You get to take 2 events to state, and everything's kind of up in the air right now.
Okay. Team-wise, you confident the way this team's going to perform at state?
I think so. I honestly. A lot of us older kids kind of came into this year saying, okay, we lost a lot of seniors last year. We kind of, our team is a little smaller than it was. I mean, we went from like 70 kids my 8th grade year to about like 40, 50 now. And that's not a bad thing. Speech does grow and change with time. But I remember a lot of us came into it just kind of like, oh gosh, like what's going to happen this year? And honestly, with our trusty coach, Abby Ingstead, our assistant coaches, and Maddie and Elizabeth and Hannah, and it takes a village. And I think that we're performing at our best, and our kids that were good last year are great this year, and our kids that were last year are good this year. And it honestly is so nice to see that progression still happening, even as our team gets smaller.
Well, when we get closer to state, we'll have you on again. Give us have you, and hopefully Abby can join us and talk a little bit more about state. And then when you come back, we'll be talking about a state championship, maybe.
Here's hoping.
Here's hoping. Well, I appreciate it again. Continued success, Maddie, and to you and Abby and the rest of the Highlander speech team. And good luck here in the month of April.
Awesome. Thank you.
You bet. That is Maddie Claibo, Senior, with the Valley City Highlander speech team. We'll be back and wrap things up here on Coach's Corner on the Highlander Activity Network. Back here on the Highlander Activity Network, and as usual, as we wrap up our Coach's Corner, tell you what's coming up here on the Highlander Activity Network. And again, here tomorrow, 7 o'clock, junior high play. And that'll be, of course, on the junior senior high theater at 7 o'clock tomorrow evening. And that'll be on the Gold Camera channel on the Highlander Activity Network. And then Saturday, we talked about that wrestling, the Express Wrestling Tournament. Coverage will begin about 11:30. We'll be up and running, and then wrestling will get started around noon, and that'll be here at the Hack. And as Matt March said, about 440 awards that he had to order. So it's going to be a fun day of wrestling. And again, that'll get started at noon on Saturday with Express Wrestling. And of course, next Wednesday night, another edition of our Coach's Corner. Track is getting going on. They had their first indoor practice meet with a duel with Jamestown here yesterday. Baseball, softball in full swing. And of course, golf, girls tennis, and golf will be getting going, boys golf here in the spring. So lots to talk about as we move through the month of March and April and into May as we continue through, and we talk about speech, of course, coming up with their state competition in April. Well, that's going to wrap things up here. And again, want to thank our guests tonight, Matt March, Superintendent Josh Johnson, and Maddie Claibo for joining us. And, of course, Brian Krewald, our technical director, and our cameraman here this afternoon and this evening. And you, the people that watch this. We appreciate you. And, of course, our sponsors. We always want to thank Essentia Health, the Valley City Highlander Booster Club, and also Dickey Rural Network. And if it's not for them, we can't put this program on and have all of the activities here on the Highlander Activity Network. So appreciate them and appreciate all of you. We'll be back again next week at 6 o'clock here at the Hack for Coach's Corner on the Highlander Activity Network.